Congressman Barry Loudermilk, he represents Georgia's 11th congressional district, also sits on the subcommittee on oversight and investigations. Sir, thank you for making the time. Hope your Thanksgiving was good, and Merry Christmas to you. Calling for a forensic analysis you are of Dominion voting machines. Do you think that's going to get done, number one, and who can we trust to perform this analysis in your view?
Well, that's the many moving parts of this. Who do you trust in all this? I mean, we're looking at it now where a judge has, as you just reported, has basically impounded certain voting machines to make sure they don't wipe the data. Then we find out Fulton County effectively wiped its data because of an IT technician, which appears to be a county employee, used the wrong server for the recount after Dominion told him not to use that server. And just in case that there was a problem, they backed up the data, but they backed it up on the same server that crashed. And so now we're looking at an instance, do we even have the data on the Fulton County servers? We don't know, but there are just so many issues that have to be investigated. And the biggest is the signature verification, which I know the governor has called for, and it's in the purview of our Secretary of State. But he's saying he can't do it. It won't change the outcome of the election. That's fine. But we've got to find out, are there people voting in Georgia that are not supposed to be voting? Because this isn't the only election we have coming up.
Well, see, and you led me right where I wanted to go, because with all of these outstanding questions, and I'm not convinced that all of those signatures with mail-in voting wouldn't be enough to overturn the election, but we'll leave that aside for a moment. There's a couple of big races, a couple of Senate races, which could determine the future of the United States. I'm not being rhetorical. And with all of these outstanding questions, it seems the Republicans who run the state of Georgia could give a damn about answering these questions.
Well, one of the issues we have, and a little bit in the defense of the governor, I wish he was a little more forthcoming and a little stronger on some of these issues. But in Georgia, our Secretary of State is a constitutional officer that's elected statewide. And so a lot of the issues are constitutionally in his purview. But also the legislature, the General Assembly, has a lot of say in this as well. And we've been calling on them to be a little more aggressive in calling for this signature verification. What the Secretary of State is saying is, look, in Georgia, we still have the secret ballot. So once the envelope is opened and the signatures are verified, the ballot is separated and you can't link those together. So if you find fraudulent voters out there, we don't know what ballot was theirs in the system. I can understand that, but we still should do the signature verification to find out who are the fraudulent voters. And that's the issue I'm having, is they're only looking in one area. Now, the Secretary of State did come out today and said he's finally investigating outside groups who are trying to register voters from other states to vote in Georgia. Ironically, I brought evidence to the Secretary of State of that very thing going on in the November 3rd election, 2 weeks before the election. I don't know why it's just now that they're looking into this.
Yeah, and let me ask you this, because the Epoch Times was reporting on the fact that there were thousands of people who used businesses and commercial businesses and post office boxes as their residence, as a place, as a mechanism to vote. And doesn't that look fishy to the Republican government there in Georgia?
It should. I mean, not only is it fishy, it's illegal in Georgia. You have to use a address that is your residence, because it is verifying that you live in a particular district, in a particular county, in a particular congressional district. So you're registered to vote in the right place. But they're using, like I said, mailboxes, et cetera, and FedEx centers as their home address. That is illegal. That should have been caught before the votes were counted. And this is a problem we have. We have to be purging the voter rolls. We have to be comparing these voter registrations, especially new registrations, when you have 1,000 or more coming from the same physical address. I don't know of too many homes that will actually hold that many different families or different individuals. That should be suspicious activity you look at before the election happens, not after.
You'd think. One last thing I want to get to you is something that you have introduced called the Thrive Act to curb government overreach. First off, tell the folks a little bit about what that is, and how much success do you think you might enjoy in a Nancy Pelosi-controlled House?
Well, I'll answer the second part first. It depends on how much control she has. We've really whittled down on how much control she's going to have by winning more seats than they actually thought we would lose. We've won several seats back, so the margin's going to be a little closer. We think that we can make a little more headway, but we'll see. She's kind of dictatorial sometimes. But the Thrive Act basically puts into play the ability for us to continue down the path of deregulation that we started under President Trump. There is something known as the Congressional Review Act. We used it very successfully after the Obama administration because they did a lot of overreach and putting a lot of oppressive regulations on businesses and individuals. And the Congressional Review Act allows Congress to go back in a finite amount of time to the previous administration and undo regulations and regulatory actions that they had put in place. What we're doing is modifying the Congressional Review Act to, one, not allow that to be undone if it was a deregulatory action. In other words, if we cut regulation, then Congress can't go back and reimpose that regulation. They would have to do it through legislation. The second aspect is increasing Congressional Review Act's reach to include these guidances that are put out by these different agencies, which don't necessarily hold the weight of law, but they use them as a big stick against individuals and businesses. So it includes these guidances in the Congressional Review Act where Congress can go back and rein in the regulatory agencies. Basically, we want to keep the economy going in the best path we can through deregulation.
Yeah, well, that's a laudable goal, of course. If this thing goes south, as some fear might happen with a Biden occupation of the Oval Office, that's all they're going to get their agenda done. It's going to be regulate, 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 and it's going to be a big wet blanket, just like in the Obama years over the economy. Sir, Congressman, thank you very much. Appreciate the time here on the Chris Salcedo Show. We'll talk again.